student from Pakistan Islamic Private School, Alain, UAE. And then I'm from Pakistan and I live in Dubai, Abu Dhabi. My hobbies are traveling, listening music, and reading books, etc. And thank you.
Welcome to the workshop, Hifza. Who's next? And Raja is also back. Welcome back, Raja. Welcome back, Bushra.
Sorry about the internet struggles. So I guess we should start at the 2:10 mark. People were doing self-introductions.
Yes.
Nice.
We still have not heard from Farheen, Halima.
Hi. Should I go?
Yeah, please.
My name is Farheen Ali. I'm 16 years old. I'm a student in English language school. And my hobbies are mostly like I like sports, I like to read, of course, music. And yeah, I do all these stuff, maybe cooking too. And I've joined this workshop because I am very interested in writing. And I think I want to improve my writing skills. So that's why.
Thank you. And next person I see, Halima. Maybe she's going to take a few moments. That's fine. Have you heard from Ifra?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ifra Mudassir, and I'm from Pakistan Islamic Higher Secondary School, Sharjah, and I'm 16 years old. I'm interested into writing. I like writing and reading. That's why I signed up for this meeting and this workshop.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for stopping in today. And let's see here. Isha? I know I'm messing that up. I see ESHA. Walaikum salam.
Yes, it's Isha.
Isha. Okay.
My name is Isha Hafiz. I'm a student of Pakistan Islamic Higher Secondary School, Sharjah, and I'm in grade 10. And I wanted to learn something other than the school stuff. So I think it's the greatest opportunity to learn new things, and that's why I'm here.
Wonderful. I hope you get something out of it today. Let's see here next. No problem. Next, I think we have Dua. Or did she disappear? I think she disappeared. Miriam.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariam, and I'm 18. Nice to meet you all. And my hobbies are writing and listening to music. Some other, there should be a long list according to that. And since I'm very interested in writing in general, so I'm also always open to improving my skills. So this is why I've signed up for this workshop.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And again, I hope you get something out of it today. So Raja, you would like to start then, and maybe I could just give some background about myself.
Sure, I'll just quickly run through the guidelines. So thank you all for joining us for the third Winter Academy session. We've had two already, one led by Raja on critical thinking and one co-led by me on research writing. So just to quickly go over, a lot of you have attended past sessions, but just to go over our guidelines to make this a productive session. Now, no cell phones generally works in school classrooms, but what we're trying to say here is try to stay focused on the workshop and not get distracted, so you can keep up, especially because Ian's following a series of steps to take you to the writing assignment. So you just want to keep up with it. This is a space, we want this to be a safe space for learning, which means that don't feel judged, feel free to express yourself, ask questions on the chat or raise your hand, and you can be called upon to ask by unmuting, and just be respectful of each other and don't be judgmental, basically. So keep your video on as much as possible. Now, some of you have messaged saying that that's an issue for you, or you're having some problems or whatever it is. Just let Zahid know, he's the one who's going to be in touch with you about, you know, your video or like interaction or whatever it is. So as a moderator, just keep him informed. If you can switch on your video even for a limited amount of time, that's good for us to know that it's an actual student with us. So keep your phones closed, but your mind wide open so you can absorb all the knowledge and inspiration. And this is a workshop, not a webinar, so be prepared to discuss and express yourself and get creative. And lastly, I think, yep, just have fun, enjoy yourself. One thing that we forgot over here is that if you want to say something, yeah, do raise your hand, use the raise hand function. If you click on participants in the Zoom toolbar, you will, right above the chat, you should see a raise hand function. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Ian to kickstart the workshop.
Okay, thank you. I felt honored to be invited to conduct this workshop today. And to give you some background information about myself, I have been teaching for almost 10 years now. I have a Master of Fine Arts in professional and creative writing. My background is mostly in creative writing. I've written a few short stories that have been published. I'm currently working on a novel that's been taking me almost as long. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background. I've been teaching here in Dubai for more than 5 years. Prior to that, I taught in China, and going far back enough, I was teaching in America. I truly, truly enjoy teaching creative writing. I enjoy that much more than teaching composition. Students tend to hate freshman composition. I understand. I remember what that's like. But for the creative writing courses, what I find most rewarding is discovering students' voices, and more importantly, helping them discover their own voices. So today, we're going to look at what's called flash fiction. Flash fiction is a form of short story writing that's typically less than 1,000 words. Often, flash fiction pieces tend to be as little as 300 words. The story that you're looking at today, even less. But just because a story is very short does not mean it's not packed with meaning. So the first step today is you're going to read this short story, for which the moderators will send you a link. It should not take you more than between 5 to 10 minutes max, more than likely 5 minutes. We'll give you around 7 minutes to finish. And then you're going to get together in breakout rooms. In the breakout rooms, you're going to discuss the story. And it's open-ended. You can discuss whatever elements of the story you found interesting, confusing. I'll leave that entirely up to you. So that part of our session today, let's say about 15 minutes of just having discussion, and then we'll end the breakout rooms and we'll come together for a larger discussion. And then I'll tell you a little bit about literary analysis. So with that, I will pass it along to my moderators.
Send the story now.
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, let's share the link to the story in the chat.
Now, this is in the competition.
Will we have a breakout room just right now?
No, the breakout rooms will come after you read the stories independently. And this is not a race, but if you can select yes or no in the participant field, that'll let us know whether or not you finished reading the story. So again, it's not a race to see who can finish first. We just want to kind of track you.
Is it Miracles 1.26? That story?
No. We're going to save the PDF for later. The link. There's a link. And if you don't have the link, I can enter it in the chat myself. I'm already there.
Okay, great.
So I'll just go ahead and do that. Yep, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ian. Sorry about that.
No problem. There you go. So again, folks, just take your time, but once you're done, just go to the participant field and select yes or no so that we can see whether or not you're done. Thank you.
Hey everyone. Okay, there's reverb. Sorry.
You can go now.
I just wanted to say that if you're done reading, just keep your hand raised. Mariam, I saw you do a thumbs up, but if you just put your hand up, then I think that would stay longer on the screen.
Or you can put a yes in the chat, like Ian suggested.
No, the hand raise is so much more illustrative.
You've got 4 hand raises, okay? 4 people have read the story.
At this point, I think we can actually just open up the breakout rooms, maybe breakout rooms of 3 people.
3 people. All right, let's do that. Let's do 6 breakout rooms. 2 of them might have 4 people.
We just have another person enter the.
We're just randomly assigning the rooms. Okay, so we're going to open up the rooms. Is everyone ready? I think one person joined us just now. Two people joined us just now. So we were reading a story, which we're going to post on the chat again. And we were just discussing it for the next 15 minutes, right, Ian? Okay.
Yes.
Opening up the rooms.
I'm gonna go to the living room. Otherwise, I won't be able to talk.
True.
Is that okay?
Or even so about 5 people have not yet joined the room. Just hope people join soon. Okay, I'll join my room. Join yours, Ian. All the best. Okay, I'll join.
I'm supposed to join my room? I'm actually supposed to. Okay,
if
no
you
problem.
want, if you would like to. If you wouldn't, if you'd be like,
No, it's cool. I'll go, no problem.
You can even skip between rooms, by the way. So as a co-host, so feel free to do that. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Yes, I did.
Doing today. So you all know me. I'm Bushra, and I'm part of the PYF EB as the head of education. We have Mariam here, Abdul Hadi, and Fahim. Okay. So, have you guys read the story?
Yes.
Yes.
And what do you think? Who wants to start the discussion? First of all, did you all honestly say, so for example, for me, it took me reading it twice to really get what the story was saying. And when I read it the first time, I thought it was something else. And I read it the second time and I realized, okay, there's more happening here in like a few paragraphs. What do you guys think is happening in the story?
There's a family and they have moved to the countryside, and I'm not sure. I just read it twice, so I'm still new to it. But their father, he has a spider in a jar, and he's showing his children that how the spider is giving birth, and the children are, I don't know, they're getting fascinated by how life works. I'm not sure.
Okay, that was exactly what I distilled the first time I read it. And then I read it again and then I've noticed some details. But what else is happening? Anyone else wants to offer something?
So just as you said, the same thing happened with me. I had to read it twice, but in fact, I would read the line and then I would go back and read the previous line. Just so I was like, I didn't understand what this point exactly meant. So I just had to reread that point again in order to understand and comprehend what it meant. So just as Farheen said, my point of view is exactly the same. As soon as I read it, like for the first time, so I was like, so this means that a family has moved to a countryside, and then they previously lived in a barn. I think that's what it said, and so their father was showing the children how baby spiders come out of the egg sac. And they were just fascinated by watching how they were just crawling up the jar and towards the hole, while the father was just, poking a stick towards it where they crawl onto it. And but there was at almost the end, there was like a quick change of everything.
Yeah.
So the point of view was like they used a hairspray instead of an insect spray, so that they would not spread. And I was like, this is something really different from that.
It was, oh, sorry, I thought I was trying to message everyone in the group in general the link to the story, but did not go through. Anyhow, I agree, but did you kind of notice the context that something else is going on here? Something
exactly, yes.
Abdul Hadi, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
So what do you think is going on? Did you notice she used a couple of words that give us a sense that something bigger is happening?
Yeah, I didn't understood that one. I read it only once, so I'm gonna look for it again.
Yeah, go ahead. Go give it another read. I'm just going to quickly drop out and come back, but feel free to continue the discussion. I just want to make sure people have access to the story. 1 second.
Okay.
The breakout room.
Hello. Can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Sorry. I was just saying that a stranger has joined. Anyhow. So you're able to message everyone in the breakout rooms, correct?
Yeah, I think I was. I think it works.
Yeah. So whenever, like, just 5 minutes remaining, if you could message the group, then they would know that they should wrap up.
Oh, wait, hold on. Time out. Was I keeping the time? How was he keeping the time?
Okay,
Were
I'll
you?
give the time. I'll give the time. I will keep it. I will message everyone when we're ready to head out. So like more like 2:40? 2:40, what do you think?
Yeah, 2:40. 2:40 might be pushing it because some of them are just sitting there just, what are we supposed to talk about?
Well, that's why we're like jumping through the meeting room, seeing what's going on.
You should, because believe me, they're just going to sit there like, what are we supposed to do?
Okay. All right, I will do that now. Okay.
All right.
All right. Has the discussion progressed since I left?
No, I was reading.
Okay. So my question generally, did you guys like the story? Did anyone here like the story?
Yes, I did. I did.
I did too.
What did you guys like about it?
The way they're showing that how like I think the bigger picture is that they're new to like they're in the countryside and they're new to that surrounding and they didn't adjust fully to that surrounding. Is that it? Or is it something else?
That's true. That's part of what's happening.
Because I didn't get the last hairspray part. The rest I kind of did get.
I agree with you. Even I didn't totally get that. Why did we have?
Same for me. As soon as I read that, why did he use this hairspray instead of the insect spray? Was it hers? And in that very part, was it hers? I had confusion. Like,
Yeah,
where did this come from? What is the writer referring to? Was it hers?
Exactly, same here.
I think what's there's an apocalypse going on here, right? So she uses the word apocalypse. After the apocalypse, so the apocalypse has already happened. A brother of mine said, do you remember if you were nervous with all those poisonous spiders radiating? So this is the beauty of flash fiction. Like every word, like Mariam in the beginning, you're saying that every line kind of connects to the other and builds the stories. That's the beauty of flash fiction in that sense. And so when she says after the apocalypse, a brother of mine, I got the sense that, first of all, the apocalypse has happened. And she said, a brother of mine. So like, how many brothers does she have? And the third thing you're talking about is how one single spider has birthed so many spiders. I feel like there's a thread here in this story about, some apocalyptic event that has changed the nature of life. But I don't know. I might be reading too much into it. What else? Any other thoughts? Have you guys read flash fiction before?
Not really.
No.
I didn't.
You do, Abdullah? What kind of flash fiction do you like, or what kind of stories do you remember reading about? Are you with us?
Yes, yes.
What kind of flash fiction do you like to read about?
I haven't read any flash fiction.
Oh, all right. Okay. I thought you said you read flash fictions. I was trying to get a sense of that. Yeah. Do you guys like the countryside? Do you guys know? Yeah, Mariam?
Nature-wise, yes, of course.
Farheen likes the country. I like it too. But you said nature-wise. What about other things? What do you not like about it?
I do like it personally, but these days the city side and like the um, I think rural is like less um like it's less preferred these days.
Okay.
Because of technology and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, prefer to be in.
because there are more opportunities in the city than in the countryside.
Mm, mhm. Okay. I think definitely city is more a buzz, but sometimes you just want to take a break and be in the countryside. So for that reason,
Yeah,
it's more interesting.
it is good for vacations also.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you, if you were to go to the countryside, where do you go usually? Here or in Pakistan?
In Pakistan.
Mm. What about you guys, Farheen, Mariam?
Yeah, in Pakistan because like it's very calm and peaceful.
Uh-huh.
Mostly like
Pakistan,
Murray Pe.
Murray. I've never been to Murray.
I went
Same.
in 2018. It was so good.
Was it cold?
Yeah, well, it was not snowing, but like there was snow already.
I see.
Like
Yeah.
we were slipping and sliding.
Oh yeah, of course. I dread the snow, but it can be beautiful.
But it was fun though.
What
It
about
was very calm because it was very cold also, so it was actually very calming for me because I love the cold.
nice? Interesting. Mariam, what about you?
I think, as you said, countrysides. I prefer countrysides because I'm someone who really prefers peace of mind and heart. So I think I prefer countryside. And as for where I would go, I'm not exactly sure. As in Pakistan, I think my village, because I don't really know. As for the natural sites, I do know there are a lot of beautiful sites in Pakistan that have a lot of greenery, that have just sightseeing and just natural areas. There's a lot of beauty in Pakistan. I've not exactly been there because whenever we go, we rarely go, even though. So we just stay at our house and we rarely go out. But yes.
Yeah, same. But I definitely like to explore when I get a chance. So we should. I'm gonna close all the breaking rooms now, and then let's see how other people discussed.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now broadcast. Just 1, 2, 3. There we go. Let's leave the breakout room. We're waiting for other people to leave the room.
And we have 6 breakout rooms, right?
We had 5.
5. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, we'll just go through all of them.
Raja's room is the only one that has not left the room yet, because I'm sure
Okay.
there'll be a very
Having a lively debate over there.
yes. So we gotta wait for them. Gonna message. Well, the rooms are gonna close themselves in a few seconds. So.
Yep. I know the drill. I do this all the time.
Your classes happen on Zoom, Ian?
Oh yeah. We've moved to Zoom.
Okay.
I know a lot of educators don't like to admit this, but I've actually become very accustomed to Zoom now. My whole life is Zoom.
Bad for the students, in my opinion, but.
All right, so you know what? We'll start with group number 1. Group number 1, share share what you discussed as a group. I'm pretty sure you have a leader. Anytime there's a group, there's always a leader.
I think Mariam, you were in the group. Faheen.
Hi, yes. So we first discussed how the story itself, and then we discussed about some of the contents of the story. I think we really discussed about what part of the story really interested us. For example, how there were more than multiple, in fact, plot twists in between. The ending, of course, and then some other where the mention of apocalypse was, we really discussed. For example, when we even Ma'am Bushra mentioned that all of us, when we first read the story, we had a different point take on it, but when we read it the another time, we had another point take on it. Yeah, that was amazing. And then we also discussed about what really interested us in the countryside and why we would prefer countryside. I think that was all.
Thank you. No, that's wonderful, especially the fact that you read it again, then your insights were different upon the second reading. That's true of any time you take a literature course, and I try to tell students that. The first time around, you may get part of what's going on, but it's only after multiple readings that you get nearly 100% of what's going on. Thank you, Mary. Group number 2, what are your insights?
Okay, so I was with 2 more other girls. I don't know what were their names, I forgot. Hifza Arif, and who was the other one?
Halima.
Halima, yeah, maybe she's not. Yeah, Halima Yasin. So the first time I read the story, it was completely complicated and confused. But afterwards, I feel a bit like I got understood about what was happening in there. They were talking. They went to the fish show and a jar in which the spider, the mother spider with.
Sorry, Furkan, sorry to mess up your name. It seems like you may be having some microphone difficulties. You may want to pass it along to one of your teammates. Who else was in your group? Is it Hissa?
Yeah, that's me. So in this story, it was all about the story is about a childhood memory that the narrator and the narrator's brother remember after the apocalypse. The memory is of them back on their old farm when their stark, raving mad mother had started calling them from wherever she lived. In this memory, their father showed them a black widow and her sack of eggs, which he would put in a jar so that they could witness the egg hatching before he kills them. That's what I learned. Halima, you have something else?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the main point which we discussed was the father was telling them about how should we take care of other things, and they were talking about the horse as well. So at the last, why was the apocalypse brought? Due to what reason, and why did they have a can of hairspray? So that is the main thing which we talked.
Okay, all right. Thank you, group number 2. You offer a lot of the plot details for sure. Thank you for that. And group number 3, what did you discuss?
I'm not really sure in which group I was. Can you say who was in group 3?
I think you're in group number 4 because I think I joined your group.
Oh, okay.
Number 3.
So who was in number 3?
I can actually pull that up. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. Wow, I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could do that.
You had the names.
Sorry.
So
Retta, I think that was your group.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know you could do that.
Okay, so my group had Fatma Tariq and Husna Wasim in them. So I'm gonna leave it up to them. I don't want to take up the floor. Fatma, you had some really great points. I hope you can reiterate them here.
I think when we all first read the story, we were confused and we didn't know where it was going. But as we read on, a lot of points started to become clear. And for the first time, when I read the story, I was really confused. But when I read it again, it made a lot of sense to me. I found it. We discussed how interesting it was that it was a story, but how it went into how it discussed other stuff without going into detail into them, like how they discussed about the mother or how they discussed about what state the father was in, and it basically talked about a lot of other stuff without going into a lot of detail about it.
Fatima, I want to thank you for that, and that's excellent. A number of university students, they don't realize that. Things can be one thing on the surface, but there's a deeper meaning to it. And when a great writer writes well, he or she actually writes in a way that the deeper meaning is part of the subtext. It's not overly explained. The reader understands that there's something bigger going on. And you kind of articulated that quite well. Thank you. Group number 4.
Yes, I think I had Isha and one more girl with me.
Yes.
Was
Dua, I think.
Yeah, Dua. So we basically discussed that first of all, the author of the story is Lucy Corrin, and at the beginning of the story, they tell how they were excited, like the kids were excited for their dad to take out the jar, which he kept. They have been waiting for a long time to see the Black Widow and the kids, and they mainly describe three things, which is their father, their mother, and the experience they had with the spider. And they tell us how their life was in the countryside, and at the end they just like rethink of the memories they had, and it doesn't really mentions here who is telling the story, like if it's a girl or a boy.
Yeah.
And they don't even mention how many siblings they particularly had.
They
uh,
just mentioned a brother.
Yeah, they just mentioned a brother, and they didn't even specify just one brother. They just say one of the brothers. So that's also a thing. And at the end, it also my interest went in the last lines, where the brother asks her or him that do you remember that we didn't have any insect spray because we would just moved out there, but he had a can of hairspray. And at the end he ends it with a question, like why did we have a hairspray, was it hers? So I think maybe it like just leaves us in a very confused spot, and a very, you just go thinking that who was her, why didn't they just
The
have
mother, I
insects?
think.
Yeah.
The mother, I think. They're talking
Oh
about
yeah.
the mother, like, was it hers?
Agreed.
Thank you, Rihab. You actually got at what a number of my university students got at during their readings. They realized that you have an unnamed narrator, and that sometimes happens in literature. And the narrator is also an unreliable narrator because of memory. Memory tends to get distorted for people in real life. And sometimes a character, a narrator, is also unreliable because memory gets distorted for that character. So you touched on quite a few elements, and that last bit about was it hers? We'll definitely talk about that a little bit later. But thank you then. And I think finally, is it group number 5? Is that it? Group number 5.
Yes, in group number 5, it was I was there. So we started with 4 people. We were down to 2, so it was only Ifra who was left in the group. Unfortunately, 2 other people just exited the room, and I can't see them in the main lobby as well. So I'll just let Ifra comment.
Yeah, so we just discussed that when we started reading the story, we got that it was something which was happening in the present. But then as we kept on reading it in the last, as they mentioned, the apocalypse and everything, in the end, the hairspray question. So it got to us that it was something of the past, not the present. As everyone else told that they were telling a memory, a part of their memory. And also the thing which was much interesting was that how they were interested in the Black Widow, the spider, how the father was showing them the jar and the babies and everything. But the last part kept me a little confused because I did not understand the whole question and everything.
Okay.
And the rest was really interesting.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. We're definitely going to go over that for sure. And there's something that you mentioned. You were talking about timelines. You were talking about whether or not the action was taking place in the present or whether it was taking place in the past. And what I try to tell university students for creative writing, literature is typically written from the past tense for a reason. It's only through retrospect, it's only through looking back that events become clear to us, their significance. When we're in the moment, we can't really process. We need time, we need distance between ourselves and the events to put things together. So that's the reason why you don't typically read a novel written from the present tense. It's super rare that you have a novel or a short story written from the present tense. So you touched on something important. The unnamed narrator is sharing some recollections from his or her childhood. And that's another thing that happens when I teach this in university courses. Students tend to think that the unnamed narrator is a male or a female, but it's never mentioned, but they kind of read it a certain way and they make assumptions, which is always fun. So the other thing I'd like to tell you is that literature tends to be open to interpretation. We can all read the exact same story, but we can have widely divergent takeaways. Our perspectives about a story can be wide ranging, and that's fine. What I always teach students is you have to back up your points, whatever they may be. I don't necessarily have to agree with you. I don't want to agree with most students. I'd like to see what students think about material. Having said that, though, it's still good to have certain tools to understand literature. And one of those tools would be literary devices. Artists try to imbue their works with certain literary devices, artistic flourishes. And we're going to go over a few basic ones. And at this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to call on volunteers to read certain passages. And we're going to pause, we're going to consider, and you'll have to excuse me, but my writing is terrible. You won't be able to read it, but I can read my notes. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Just give me a moment.
I have terrible handwriting too, and I'm beginning to conclude it has something to do with superior intellectual skills. Do you agree with
Yeah, I have no such illusions about that. I just know that I just have terrible handwriting.
You're a professor and you got invited to do a workshop, okay? You need to go along with this delusion, at least for today. Guys, he's really smart. Ian, we do trivia night every week and he kills it.
Yep, I know a lot of useful information and a lot of useless information, so there's that.
There you go.
So first
my
things
writing,
first.
but a bit angled.
Well, hopefully it doesn't look like mine. I've heard some horrible things about my handwriting my whole life, but enough about that. So the first thing you should always pay attention to when looking at literature, the title of a story or novel, it's there for a reason. There's some significance to it. And typically, if we read a story or we read a novel, the title becomes readily available to us in the sense that we understand why it's significant. At some point, an author will reveal that. So we'll just go through it quite slowly, and I'm going to call on volunteers to read certain passages. So I'll actually call on Raja. Would you be so kind, ma'am, as to read up until here?
Okay, so We watched our father take the jar out to the patio on the day we had been waiting for since he put the spider into it with its egg sac. It was a black widow spider which we knew never to touch in the garden and to know by the red bow on its belly. Is it bow or bow? Okay, whatever. Bow. Okay. We'd been living in the country since our stark, raving mad mother started calling the apartment from her orbit.
Thank you. So first things first, we do get some important information. If you look at the narrative, well, the narrative is written from the first person plural. It's not I, it's we. So the narrator is sharing his or her experiences of early childhood as a family. He or she is talking about the siblings. Now this, I don't have to read the entire short story to already make a connection between the jar and the spider eggs to relationship to the title. But you don't necessarily know how to read literature in a way that things become readily apparent to you. So it comes a little bit later in the story, but I automatically made that connection. So we got the Black Widow, and the Black Widow, of course, represents danger. And this is important for reasons that we will divulge at the end. But anyway, looking at this line right here, this is highlighted for a reason because it's super important. And if you look at it, what I've written here is it's an idiom for madness or sometimes drug use. So some of my students, idiom means that language that is not meant to be taken literally. Some of my students read this literally and they thought the mother was an astronaut. That is wildly inaccurate. The mother suffers from mental illness. And that's important for us to know as readers. Her mother is mentally ill. There's mental illness in the family. So that's an important bit of information. I'm going to call on someone else to read now, and I want you to stop. You start here, and you start right here. I mean, you stop right here. So I will call on, let me see who's in the room. Farheen?
Yes.
Would you be so kind, ma'am, as to start here and stop right there?
Start where? I cannot see the mouse.
Okay. Our father lay, and I'll tell you
okay.
when to stop.
Our father lay down near the jar on his side. He was always showing us stuff around the farm. He was growing a beard, always tired and patient. There was a barn with a horse in it we were taking care of. He said a lot about learning to take care of others as a part of growing up. And we watched him with eyes too big for our heads.
Stop for just one moment. All right, thank you, ma'am. Excellent. So we'll take a look at this. There are certain ways you can communicate to a reader what's going on with a character. You can communicate what's going on with a character through the character's dialogue, what that character says. You can also communicate what's going on with a character through actions. What is it this character does? That reveals something about what's going on with the character. But one of the things that a really good writer can do is reveal what's going on with the character through body language. So some of these characteristics, some of these physical traits tell us about what's going on with the dad. He was growing a beard. So that means that maybe in a Western context, he's not keeping up with his personal grooming anymore. He's letting himself go. In a Western context, most men tend to be clean shaven. So that suggests something. This next bit is important. Always tired and patient. Why is he always tired? Well, if you think about it, the mother's no longer in the picture. This is the stress of him being a single parent. So again, this is important information. The next line, there was a barn with a horse in it we were taking care of. He said a lot about learning to take care of others as a part of growing up. And we watched him with eyes too big for our heads. This part is important. He is taking care of his personal responsibilities, which means his children. He is imparting important life lessons to his children. Now, this part here, I love reading this part. I've read it so many times. anyone who has small children or nieces and nephews like I do, they know that this is very true of children. Watching him with eyes too big for our heads, that speaks to the shock or amazement or rapture that small children have when they see something or they're taking a parent's words in quite deeply and they're considering. Eyes too big for their head, that's about imagery. Imagery is one of those literary devices that help a reader to really envision what's going on. It becomes more concrete. When we envision that, we know exactly what little kids look like when they're really excited and they're super attentive. Anyway, thank you. All right, so I'm going to call on someone else, and you're going to start from here, and you're going to end right here. So start with we gathered and end with paying attention. Let's see here, Miriam.
We gathered around the jar and put our noses to it in turn, looking for the movement he said to look for in the egg sac. How you could see it was timed by shadows crossing. We were getting a little bored when the baby started to come out just like he said. They were smaller than anything, and the big mother spider, you couldn't tell if she was paying attention.
Thank you. So this is really, really important. And what I've written here in the margin of like meaning of life, life, and it's confirmed. So my suspicions about the meaning of life, that is the miracle of life, which speaks to the title. It's all related. Now, this part is a part that I imagine most of you missed. CF is Latin for conferre, which means to compare. The black widow spider mother and their mother, they're the same. The black widow spider is a symbolic representation of their mother. Their mother is disinterested or abandoned them. The black widow spider's mother is disinterested and abandons her children. She leaves her children to the world. And if you miss that, that's perfectly fine. You're not going to understand that unless you really know how to read literature. So, oh, Rajah, did you get that?
No, I didn't get that, and I'm so surprised. I thought I should have gotten that.
It's okay. I
Like,
do this for a living.
I was like, why do they care so much about how much attention the mom is paying? It's a spider. And then when you said it, I was like,
it's all about their mother. It's not about the spider.
Yeah. Damn.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Mind blown.
All right. Well, good. So if you read deeply into literature, certain things become quite apparent. And it's not like I'm saying anything that the text itself doesn't suggest. I'm old school in the way I approach literature. I don't necessarily bring in some philosophical debates into my discussions of literature. I'm more a formalist. I know how literary devices work, and I can look at a piece of literature and dissect it like it's math, like it's science. So the babies were spreading out over the inside of the jar, the miracle of life. They were making their ways to the air holes punched in the lid. Our father just watched and commented for our benefit. He put a stick to an air hole and we watched babies crawl up it. Spiders crawled their whole lives. We watched, but some of our attention wandered. Again, they were small children, so that's to be expected. Now, I'm going to call on someone else to read these lines, starting here and ending here. And I shall call on, let's see here, who's in the room? Isha?
Sorry, where should I start from?
You're going to start with, we were new to the countryside.
We were new to the countryside, new life surrounding us. I remember a lot of things from that place besides this. After the apocalypse, a brother of mine said, "Do you remember if you were nervous with all those poison spiders radiating from the jar?"
Pause for
You
just a moment.
remember that
Wait,
we
no,
didn't
no.
have any insect spray because we'd just moved out there, but sorry?
Oh no, I'm sorry. No, continue. Finish. Close this out.
Okay. Do you remember that we didn't have any insect spray because we just moved out there, but he had a can of hairspray, and that's what he sprayed on them just as they were getting away. Why did we have hairspray? Was it hers?
Thank you. So I'm going to explain what's going
You're
on.
welcome.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm going to explain what's going on in these last few lines here. So the fact that they were new to the countryside and it's a new life, it speaks to a period of adjustment. We wonder if the separation of the mother and the father had just preceded this. So that's important. And this juxtaposition of life in the country versus the city. Life in the country tends to be more relaxed. There are more responsibilities, but it's also a good way to get away from the hustle and bustle of city life. But this part is super important. The apocalypse. We don't know if it's a real apocalypse or a personal apocalypse. If it's a personal apocalypse, that is a metaphor to describe the end of their family unit. But again, we don't know for sure, but we're left to question. Now, this brother of the narrator speaks to this memory. And again, memory is a funny thing. It's fickle. We tend to get things distorted as we age. But I want to point out two more things. First would be this word choice, radiating. I'm going to call on someone now. Let's see here. Rihab, why do you suppose that particular word choice is important?
Maybe they're just concentrating on that particular word, like they're like just coming out of it like all together and a lot of it, and they just weren't scared of it, I guess, and they just moved away and didn't really do anything major about it.
All right, that's interesting. But if you think about word choices are super important. An author chooses each of her words carefully. There is not a single word that is out of place. Radiating speaks to the profusion of life that was emanating from the jar. So now the word choice of radiating, we get the imagery. That means there were hundreds, if not thousands of spiders just coming out of this jar. Do you see that now, Rhea?
Yes, I do.
Okay, now that you're picturing that, well, of course the dad started to spray them. What father who's responsible for his children would allow these dangerous insects to be around? Again, this doubles back to our original bit about the father taking responsibility for his children. He is the responsible parent. The mother is no longer in the picture for reasons we can only surmise based on the narrator's recollection of her being out there in orbit, mentally ill, perhaps. Okay, so now that we have that, the piece ends with these questions. Why did we have hairspray? Was it hers? So this tells us something more important. The brother thinks about the mother too. They're all thinking about the mother. If we think about literature, literature tends to be about human experiences, lived experiences. If we think about this story, the big theme, and that's a literary device too, an idea, the biggest theme in this story would be family, family dynamics. If we think about this family, the story is told in a flashback sequence, speaking to the past tense, and then years later, we understand that the siblings get together and they discuss that time on the farm. We have to wonder how the mother's absence affected this family in terms of trauma. How did they process the loss of their mother as far as her no longer being part of the family? So that is important. And as far as the hairspray, yes, it's the mother's hairspray. That's implied. So when the father left and he packed up everything, he had her hairspray, but he had no insect spray because he lived in the city and he had no need for that. So he used whatever was readily available to him. So again, you're not going to get this the first time you read something. And just understand, I did go to graduate school for this kind of thing. I was not necessarily like someone who was born to do this kind of thing. Like, no, it was through training and a whole bunch of reading. And yeah, that's how I got here. But I'm glad that you got at some of what was going on. And what I try to do in a university classroom setting is I try to fill in some of the blanks for students. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a university student's flash fiction piece before we get to your own flash fiction pieces, because you're going to write today too. I'm just going to give you some background for this particular in-class writing exercise that I did. I sometimes take the students outside of the classroom, especially for creative writing. We'll leave, we'll walk the streets. I'll make them pay attention to the world outside and make them experience it through all 5 senses. The smells in the air, the taste in their mouths, the things that they see, the details. So for this particular in-class writing assignment, that became a bonus opportunity in which the winner got extra points for an assessment. The students were tasked with following me to the building next door where there are restaurants, and typically you'll find men who are seated and they're waiting for orders to be put together so that they can make deliveries. What I did was I challenged those students to think about the people whom they probably never think about. They never think about these delivery men, what their lives must be like. And what I did was we sat at these tables kind of away, and I kind of pointed. I was like, hey, them, what are they talking about? What are their lives like? And that was the writing prompt. They looked at these men and they imagined a story related to these men waiting to pick up delivery items for customers. And that's the background for this story. And you're going to read this student's flash fiction piece. Don't worry, it's just 1 page. The challenge was to write a story in 300 words or less. And Bushra, will you send it to them, or should I upload it, or should I put it in
I'll
the
send
chat?
it. I have it. I have it. I'm sending
Okay.
it now. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. All right. It's been sent. At least it tells me file has been sent successfully. So can you access it in the chat, everyone? Yeah. Okay.
I can
Wonderful.
see
I
it.
see.
Oh, no. Maybe some thumbs up if you can see it.
Okay. Okay. So it's been sent.
I didn't get it.
Who didn't get it? Isha, you didn't get it? Did you check your chat?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't get it.
I also
Same.
didn't got it.
That's interesting because it's telling me that it's been sent to everyone. Okay, Isha, I'm gonna send it to you again.
I also didn't get it.
Yeah, Husna, let's try that. I'm gonna send it to Isha first and hopefully she gets it. I can't send it privately. Okay. Let me see.
Yeah, I see it. I got it.
I'll try messaging it again myself to see if it goes through.
I think it might be an internet thing as well. Maybe some people get it more slowly. Okay. Abdul Hadi hasn't gotten it either.
No, it's fine. You know what? We'll just adjust. It's a really short piece. Like, I'll just put it up on the screen myself and I'll share it, and then you just take a few minutes to read it. No problem.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it should only take you a few minutes, so I'll just kind of wait. Are we good? Ms. Bushra, are you done reading?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
A couple people have raised their hands as well that they are done reading. If anyone else is done reading, you could raise your hand. Okay.
All right.
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah. I think we're pretty much done.
Yep.
So, what we can do now? Someone, actually, you know what? I will call on someone at random, I guess. Oh, I'm going to mess up your name. Husna? Sorry. I'm sorry if I butchered it. Ma'am, can you tell me what's good about this story?
He or she is talking about of the delivery man, that they are you know that first they were two but then they were three, and then they started talking, and
I think Husna got muted. Husna, do you want to tell us what you like about the story? Like what's good about it? Are you there?
Might be having some issues.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Thank you for that. Abdul. No.
Abdul Hadi, are you there? I don't know if he's there.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Furkan? Or Furkan?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm there.
Oh, wonderful. Can you tell me what you like about this story? What's good about it?
Okay, so basically, the main point which I loved it was the way in which it was written. It took me to the place where this whole thing took place, and the way it is being explained. That's all.
Okay. Thank you for that, sir. And you actually mentioned something kind of interesting, and I think based on that, I'd like to enter something in the chat field. Just one moment. Where's the chat thingy? Oh, looking at the wrong place probably. Oh, here we go. Chat. You mentioned something, and my memory's foggy, but I'm pretty sure it speaks to poetics and Aristotle. You talked about the unities of action, time, and place. So if you think about this story, the action all takes place in one tense, as in the time is all there. All the action takes place here, the time is here, and the setting all in this one particular place. So you touched on something that Aristotle thought about thousands of years ago, as far as storytelling. The other thing that I'd like to say about storytelling, and this goes back to Aristotle as well, he talked about dramatic works should have three elements other than this bit here. Maybe it was Plato who said time, the unities, but Aristotle for sure was the beginning, middle, and end. He definitely talked about that, and all stories have that for the most part, but certain short stories don't necessarily follow those conventions. There are a few things I'd like to remark about this story. The language is accessible, but beneath the surface, there's quite a bit going on. In that regard, this young woman, her story reminds me a lot of Ernest Hemingway. The language is not particularly hard to understand, but there's some deeper meaning. The first thing I'd like to highlight would be this sentence here. These men who do the deliveries, it was them who were in the building office waiting for it, even though it was meant for someone else. This speaks to the division between these men and the people who make these orders, the privileged class versus an underclass. She doesn't explicitly state this, it's implicit, it's implied in the text. So I thought that was amazing. I thought that was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the title, it's about this familiarity of an unknown brotherhood. Unknown in the sense that we don't pay attention to these folks, but people who are part of this subgroup, this subculture, they are aware of one another. So in those brief moments, they bond over their shared experience. And that's what makes for their brotherhood. That's what makes for their fraternity. But the nature of their work relationships, their work life, tends to be transient because they are in jobs in which they are constantly on the move. So the nature of the relationships are going to be transient. They are going to be impermanent. So if you look at the end, it's about the unfamiliar friend. Friend in the sense that they have that shared sense of camaraderie. Even though you don't know that person, you have a shared life experience as far as your vocation, as far as what you do, as far as your work is concerned. So these relationships are short and fleeting. They're transient. They don't last a long time. So I thought this story was exceptionally good. I was kind of blown away that the student came up with this. And she's since graduated. I miss her, like I miss all of my great students. But yeah, this was a good one. So you folks are going to get a writing challenge today as well. And you're only going to get between 15 to 20 minutes. And you're going to write a short story. And it doesn't have to be 300 words. It can be fewer than 300 words. Yes, Furkan, yes, you're definitely going to write today. So some of your stories may be, yeah, no problem. Some of your stories may be as short as just 50 words. Who knows? I've seen some amazing stories that are only 50 words in length. As a matter of fact, one of the most famous stories ever only consists of 6 words. It was attributed to Ernest Hemingway, but that's apocryphal. It's not true. And the short story reads like this: sail today, baby shoes, never worn. And 6 words, but it packs quite a bit of meaning. So anyway, you're going to write, and I'm going to enter in the prompt. Just one moment. Let me stop sharing the screen. Let's see here. Stop sharing. Okay. So I'm going to enter something in the chat field, and this is your prompt. Now, what I tell students is this: most writers, they write about what they know, their lived experiences. That's good. That's really good. But I think it's much harder and it's more important to write about people we don't know, experiences we don't know about. Because in those moments, we become more empathetic. And I think all literature, especially the good stuff, is really about our shared humanity. When you can actually imagine the lives of others and render their lives with empathy and compassion, that is the mark of a good writer, a great writer. So this is the prompt, and it's drawn from recent news. This was in the news here. I read a piece, I think it might have been the Gulf News, and it was about the lockdown, how there were 12 delivery men who died during the lockdown. And the captain of the police said that there was no excuse for this, that no one was on the roads because it was the lockdown. He blamed the companies that put tremendous pressure on these delivery men to get these deliveries done. So they were overworked and they took risk and they were driving too fast and the conditions didn't allow for it. So 12 men died during the lockdown, delivery men. So this is your prompt, and I'm going to enter it. You have 3 options. The last day, of one of those delivery men, the one who delivers the bad news, tragic news, excuse me. The person who delivers the tragic news, that's your second option. And your third option is the person who receives the tragic news.
I thought we were
You're going to write,
light.
you're going to, what's that?
I thought we were going to keep today light and fun.
It is light and fun in the sense that it's a challenge, but a lot of literature tends to be serious. The reason why we enjoy serious literature and some of the sad stuff, it makes us appreciate life more. Writing about this will make you appreciate your life more. The fact that you have certain connections still and that you are still living. You're amongst the living. So it's light in that sense, Bushra. I'm sorry, literature tends to be sad. So these are your options, people. You're going to get between 15 to 20 minutes, and you're going to work independently, and you're going to write a short story from one of these three perspectives. And your time begins now.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you say the story again? Because I didn't catch the story yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll say it again, and I'm sure it'll make Bushra sad again. So during the lockdown, there were delivery men, 12, who died. And that was because of the tremendous pressure they were under to get these deliveries. And there were multiple deliveries because everyone's locked down. So you're tasked with writing about one of these three different perspectives. You're going to come up with a character, a very short story about either one of those delivery men and his last day, or you're going to write from the perspective of the person who has to deliver the tragic news to that delivery man's family, or you're going to write a story about the person who receives the tragic news. So those prompts are in the chat field. There are three options. You may begin.
I'm gonna write down, Ian, the time and the word count. So the word count is about
No,
no word
less
count?
than 300 words. The word count has to be less than 300 words. That's the challenge. It has to be less than 300.
I have a question.
And when you're done, okay, there we go. 15 to 20 minutes. That's the duration. Thank you, Raja. And you're going to email me your stories when you're done. There we go. That's my email address. You're going to send that to my email. And I'm going to take a look after you're done.
I have a question though, Ian. I have never written a story in my life. I'm terrified of writing.
Don't be.
20 minutes. How do I get started?
You put yourself in that person's shoes. You see the life that they live and you see their world. You start with a small detail. Start with a small detail first.
The
Can I do this challenge?
problem for me is selecting a nice topic.
I'm sorry?
The most terrible problem for me is selecting a nice topic where I could just go into that situation.
Well, unfortunately, you have some bad situations today. And sometimes that happens too. You know.
Okay, so since I'm attending a workshop with a actual professor in creative writing, I'm gonna do the challenge as well. Okay, all right, Bushra, do you want to compete?
You moderators is definitely doing it. You're part of the group. That means you too, sir. Yeah.
Zahid, you gotta do this
Zahid,
challenge as well.
That means you too. Oh, you have to write too.
Hi, I know everyone's busy writing right now. I just wanted to reiterate that if you don't understand the assignment, please message us in the chat, either me or Bushra or Zahid, and we can explain the assignment to you privately if you'd like. Okay? Happy writing.
I just got a comment from someone that they didn't quite understand the story, so they wanted me to type it up in chat. So I'm gonna try to do that, and in a few minutes.
I did it once, so I'll just copy paste that. Okay?
Oh, and I just saw my messages too. I just want you folks to know, no, it was an accident. The delivery man died because of an accident.
It wasn't the aliens? No.
It was definitely not the aliens.
My God, Bushra. Okay, so I put it in the chat. A summary.
And you wrote right the wrong way. You wrote right instead of right.
Well, I'm not going to make this mistake in my flash story, hopefully. Flash fiction piece.
And don't worry, I have issues with misspellings.
No comment.
Well, at least, Ian, you know your curries. So, little inside joke among the adults, kids. Okay, anyway, back to writing.
All right. Please take the next 5 minutes to wrap up and then email me. I'll put my email in the chat field again, and everyone's going to email me in 5 minutes. Time's up, people. Time's up. You need to go ahead and shoot that email to me. Time is up. That means you too, Raja. That means you too. Oh, Zahid was the first one to send. Okay.
Wow, Zahid is just very over efficient.
Big time. He seems very confident.
It is just that I think, as Bushra said, this was my first attempt at writing. Not first, I think I have attempted writing previously, but I know what I'm good at and what I am not. So I thought I'll just, give it another shot and just share whatever it is, because the
Good.
learning so far has been great.
It's not going to be graded. You
Yes,
guys are
and
not going to be.
yes, I just wanted to. Yes, I just wanted to incorporate whatever we have, discussed so far in the workshop, and just see if I can do it a bit better from the last time I did or not.
Great.
And I think the tip that you gave to Bushra was something that was my starting point, that I have to put myself in shoes of whoever, that person is, and then think from that mindset, rather than just trying to understand how other person felt. I think one good way of looking at it, or, trying to write, is being in their shoes.
Absolutely. I have issues with that myself, for sure. But yeah, you get better at it. All right, let's see how many people have sent so far. Only 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Here we go. They're coming in now. This is good.
And Ian, it could have stayed a secret between you and me about my story, because.
No, look, I'm not going to out anyone. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of read through, and I'm just going to select one, and we're just going to take a look at it. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to have you folks in breakout rooms discussing your stories, but in particular, you're going to discuss the perspective that you chose and why. All right, let's see here. Who's in? I still have the exact same 4 people. Folks, it's okay. You can go ahead and send me your pieces. Just shoot away. It doesn't have to be spell checked. I'm not checking you for grammar. It's okay. Don't worry. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a look at the stories, and
just give me 2 minutes. I'm just going to send it to you now. I've done the
no.
writing.
Just
with
send
the
it right
email
now.
stuff.
You can even send it to me mid-sentence. It's fine. Sometimes literature works that way, when things end mid-sentence. All right.
That's
So
how
I got 5 now.
So should we go with the same breakout rooms, or should we mix things up a little bit?
Mix things up. Just randomly open up some breakout rooms.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so I sent it and it's not complete, and I'm so pissed, but sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And yeah, we're just going to do the breakout rooms for maybe like 10 minutes. 10 minutes would be enough.
Mm.
I'm just moving some people around to keep things exciting. Okay, I'm opening up the rooms now, all right?
Hello.
Your mic is mute.
Hi, sorry. Have you guys started your discussion?
About what?
About your story. That's what we're here to do, right? So share your story with each other and talk about, you know, what perspective you're bringing to it, which topic you chose and why, and what perspective. Like maybe let each other read each other's stories and tell what they think. Yeah.
Okay, so all right, about the last day. So basically, when I chose the plot, let me just start from the beginning. A person waking up early and then having no thoughts other than his 13 hours job, which on which all of his family was dependent. So he went for that, got fresh, wearing uniform, and head to his job point. And afterwards, took his first order, then the second one, then the third one, and finally, when he was at his last order, he didn't know what was going to happen, and at all of a sudden, a car came, a fast car, took a turn, directly hit him, smashed him to the ground, and he left the world with nothing but a tear.
Oh wow, that's pretty strong. Nice. Isha, what did you write? Do you guys post your stories in the chat? I'm gonna post mine in the chat.
I'm so sorry, I stutter a bit while speaking English.
I'm sorry, you said you stutter?
Yes, sometimes.
I stutter too. I also, it's not about speaking English. It's just, I think it's just a nervousness sometimes. Copy it in for some reason.
Yeah, it's sometimes the nervousness, sometimes because we are bilingual, that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to copy in my story and it's just not working. Really annoying me. Are you guys able to do that?
Let me see.
It's just not. I'm just gonna put a screenshot of it actually. I just sent that through. Feel free to post your stories so we can discuss them. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Just in a minute.
Okay. Isha, are you able to post it?
Actually, I cannot copy it.
Yeah, I see that's happening to me too. How about a screenshot? Just put a screenshot of it in the chat. That might be the easiest thing to do.
Okay, I'll try that. How do we upload a screenshot in the chat box?
You can upload a file, or what I did was I just dragged and dropped it in, and it आ गया था कोई मसला नहीं हुआ. Waiting for cons. It all started when a person woke up early in the morning, having no new thoughts other than his 13 hours tiring job on which his whole house was dependent. Getting fresh, wearing uniform, and out for his day, reaching his job point, and started from his first order. With a good will, he went for that, but did not know what was coming up. First ordered unsafely, and the second one, and third one, and so on. After being tired and waiting for his last order, he was happy that his day got to a good end. But suddenly, out of nowhere, while driving a fast car, took a wrong turn, directly hitting the bike and smashing him to the ground. The last thing he saw was the driver in haste coming out of the car towards him, his eyes blackened, and with no hope, a tear, he left the world. Interesting. Very dramatic. Very descriptive and very dramatic. I like it. Very good for 20 minutes. Keep calm. Do you enjoy writing, Furkan?
Yeah, I do. Really, I love writing.
What do you usually write about or for?
I didn't get your point.
What kind of writing do you like to do? Do you like to write stories or articles, or what kind of writing?
My imagination.
Your imagination. So you like writing stories?
Yeah, sometimes, but it's not like a complete hobby. But when I try to write something, it's definitely going to be good.
Okay. What about you, Isha? Do you enjoy?
Because what I try is that taking the reader to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
So basically, what is my main point, or what I quantize, is that I take the reader to the situation, which I'm trying to explain.
I see. It's more like you want to got it. Isha, what about you? I'm reading your
Actually, when I was writing, when I was writing, I was feeling like when the sir said that you don't have enough time and then you have to cover up, and I got under pressure, and then I didn't wrote about his life like in his last day, but I do wrote a lot of other things.
Interesting.
In the start.
I'm reading it, and then it's like it was your reaction to the story, basically.
Yeah, if I got more time, I would have written about the last day of his life, because that was like the main topic. But before, like the sir said that you have to wrap up, I was like writing all the other stuff, like my point of view on it and other questions. And when sir said that you have to wind up, then I wrote about his life. Sorry, not his life, the last day.
Interesting.
So that's why I didn't write about it much.
Really good perspective still. I really like Furkan put himself in the shoes of the person, and then you're sort of like I'm an onlooker, so this is what I think. So yeah, it's pretty great. I definitely need longer to write.
Thank you so much.
What did you guys think of what I wrote? Give me some feedback.
Oh, I haven't read it. Like, I'll just do it now, okay?
Okay, guys, I'm actually going to drop out of the breakout room because Ian wants to discuss the writing. So I'm just going to leave the room, and you guys do the same, all right? In like a few minutes when
Okay.
the message.
Okay.
Leave breakout room.
Yes, Abdulhadi, can you hear us now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was speaking before the last class. Could you hear me?
No, unfortunately, I and Ifra, we both could not, hear you. And we were telling you to unmute your mic. It was showing that your mic is on mute.
No, sir. I was talking.
No. So maybe, before everyone joins, if you just want to talk about your story. So I and Ifra, okay, since people have started joining. So unfortunately, we could not hear Abdul Hadi's story. Bushra, you're on mute.
thing. That's unfortunate, but no worries.
Yeah,
Now
that's unfortunate. We tried, he tried leaving the room, unmuting, whatever, but it never worked. Yeah.
virtual, the world of virtual everything. I have very mixed feelings about it.
Sorry, Abdul Hadi.
Couple more, I guess. Okay, I think we're all back.
Just
3 more people or 2
yeah,
more at least.
just one more person actually. Mariam needs to come back. I think everyone's here now. All good.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, and let's see here. So I think the first thing I'd like to talk about, I'd like to go around the room and kind of get a feel for why you chose the particular perspective that you did. And hopefully you enjoyed discussing it in your breakout rooms as well, but I'm going to ask individually. And since you're the first person I see, I'm going to ask you, why did you choose that particular perspective?
So I chose the third perspective, and the reason being is the second perspective I thought would not have any emotional part to it, or they may not. So I skipped that. Out of the two, I chose the third one because I just wanted to see from the perspective of someone who is actually, living with it and is going to live with it. The first person, whatever his experience was on his last day might have ended with him, but the third person's perspective who's receiving the news, when he's presenting, he may, question from the current perspective and from the future perspective as well. So I just thought it is more to express and, think about from that person's perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bushra, why did you choose your particular perspective?
I found it most easiest to access because I either like to be a receiver or a giver of bad news. So it was easier for me to imagine that person's day before the tragedy. So I didn't actually get to the tragedy itself. I found it easiest to just think about what their day must have been like, a typical day.
Okay, thank you. And Rihab?
I choose from the perspective of the one who delivers the tragic news. I know the whole point of this was to think in someone else's shoes, but apparently this topic was personal because I was once in a spot to deliver a news to a friend about her dad recently. Her dad passed away because of COVID, and her parents didn't have the they couldn't just tell their daughter, and I was the closest to them, and she was in a different country. She was in Czech Republic, and they requested me to do it, and I had a lot of thoughts, and I just went numb because all at that point I could think of was about what if I was in my friend's position, and if someone else who was not even my family was coming to tell me about my own dad. And I wrote it from that perspective, and I wrote about some of the thoughts that came up in my head. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you for that. And Rajah?
I wrote from the first perspective because I recently witnessed someone being very rude to a delivery guy who'd already had such a tough day, and I kept imagining like how difficult the whole day must have been, and we think the tragic part is the death, but actually it's all of the experiences before that that are really soul crushing. So I wrote from that perspective.
Yes, I got a very SJW vibe from your piece. Thank you, ma'am. Ifra?
Yes, I chose the third perspective of the person receiving that tragic news because I could express much more feelings that how a person could feel when receiving a news of their loved one who have just gone away and now there will be no more with them. Because I've experienced something related to it, so I knew how to express it much more firmly. I just chose this one.
Okay, thank you. It's wonderful. And Abdul, did you have a chance to write a piece? Or Abdul didn't get a chance, right? No? I know he had some mic difficulties, so I'll just move on. No worries. Halima.
Yes. Well, I chose the perspective from the one who received the tragic news because I think that I could relate more to this, as I also recently experienced the same kind of situation where my grandpa died. It was very hard for everyone to tell me. So they only said to me that he was sick, it was cold, but when I visited that place, he was already gone. So that's why I think I can relate more to this. That's why I wrote this perspective.
Okay, thank you, Halima. Thank you for sharing. Isha.
Yes, I chose the first perspective because I thought that I could write more on it in less time because the time was actually really, less. So I thought that I can write more on it. That's why I chose the first perspective.
I appreciate your candor, your honesty. Thank you, ma'am. That's wonderful. That's good. And Hifzan? Hopefully I didn't butcher your name too badly.
Whose name was it, Ian?
Hifza. Oh, okay. I did say that the right way. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I think people keep dropping in and out because of connectivity issues.
Yeah,
so.
that's why I'm in my office at the university because I didn't want to embarrass myself with my home internet connection. No way. It's all good. Furkan or Furhan?
Yeah, I just wrote the story from the third perspective. I just imagined all of it, and when I gathered all the information and wrote it, that's all.
Yeah, I noticed like you threw a lot of details in there. Like there was a whole bunch of stuff going on. There's some exclamation points. Yeah, I noticed that. Thank you.
I love to write, that's why.
No. I could tell like you were really into it. Miriam.
Okay, so I actually wrote a really short story, but because of the shortage of time, because I actually started writing in the last 5 minutes, and I chose the first perspective, not because I think that to that very person who had to face it, that would be a lot more important to him, for him, because he went through that experience. But due to the shortage of time, I was not able to add a lot more details because you said the time is up, and I just wrote the last sentence and then I just sent it. But I believe I could have added more details, but I also try to keep it as short as possible.
Ian, I'm sensing a lot of excitement for this research, this writing assignment, because everyone's like, if we had more time, we would say so much more. That's amazing. Everyone's into it.
No, what I'm doing is typical for a creative writing workshop at the university level, whether it's for undergraduates or graduate students. When I was a graduate student, we used to get these kinds of challenges too. We would have like some established novelists come in and they'd give us a writing challenge. And we felt the same way. Like you get like a topic or no topic at all. It's open-ended and you have 20 minutes. So like I've been there, like I'm like, what am I gonna write about? And just in the last 5 minutes, I write furiously. No, it's fine. Thank you, Rajan. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. Husna?
So Husna's having connectivity issues, but Husna, please just type it out. Like you can tell us why you chose your perspective in the chat.
She is typing. I think she's typing actually. Is she typing? Or no, that's from before. Internet connection, okay. All right. Okay. So having gone around the room, I'm actually going to show you one piece. And it's not because, oh, this piece is so superior to yours, or this person's like my favorite person ever. I'm not biased in that way. Like I'm looking at all of your writing for the first time. And I'm selecting this piece because there are elements of this piece that resonated with me, and there are things in this piece that I find teachable. So I'm going to show you an example, and you know, it's not a contest. It's not a contest. I'm going to put that out there. If it were one of my classes, it would be a contest, but for your purposes, no. So just give me one moment. Be right back. Okay. Person just has the prompt, not original title, but that's perfectly fine. And I will read it. How should I say it? Do I tell them the truth that their manager didn't care about their lives at all? Not only one, but 12, which led to their death. Should I say to them that it was just an accident and had nothing to do with us? How do I tell them that the people they love the most and work so hard for their families and continue to, even when they were overworked and exhausted, have passed away? I can still take a turn and go back home and not face the families. How should I face them when they open their doors expecting to see their loved ones? And little do they know, they are going to find out the heartbreaking truth. I do not want to be the one to break their hearts and hopes and watch them break down in pieces. I can go to 12 families and break them all and their dreams. I have to do it, don't I? I have to face them and tell them what they deserve to know before it's too late and someone heartless just drops the news as if the ones who passed away didn't mean anything and leave. I can tell them in a respectable way and make sure they are not alone when they hear it. That's the least I can do, right? Is there anything I can possibly do to make this better? How can I? Not one, but 12 people died because of a heartless man who didn't care about anything but his deliveries and money. How can I tell the families that I care and it shatters me more than them because I have to watch and deliver this news to not one, but 12 families? Well, I can't turn back now. I've reached the house. Knocks on the door. The little girl opens the door. Hey, Daddy. This story resonates for many reasons. Our unnamed narrator, we can feel the grief and anguish, how conflicted he or she is in having to deliver this news. If you think about the burden of that, carrying that weight, that responsibility, this horrific responsibility, and how that would weigh on someone. Excellent. The student took the liberty of making it not 12 different delivery men working for different companies, one company responsible for that many deaths. And that can happen with the company, not necessarily with deliveries, but that can happen where someone has to deliver the news to 12 different families. That feeling of dread and sadness, it is palpable. You can feel it as a reader. This piece is good as a vignette. That is a form of short writing. It's a form of short writing that is evocative. It brings out emotions in a reader. I can feel the pathos off this page. I feel the sympathy for this unnamed narrator and the parts about personal responsibility. If not him or her, then someone else, someone who will not be kind and considerate in breaking the news, someone who's going to be callous. This speaks to the person's character. If we think in terms of literary devices, characterization is one of the important ones. This person is a good person. This person feels a moral responsibility, an obligation to these families. And this person has taken that burden upon himself or herself. And the way the piece ends, the girl is opening the door expecting her father to be there, and it ends right there. If you think about really good literature, good stories, good novels, they end in a way that isn't neat. The story continues, but it just ends on the page. It continues in the mind and heart of the reader. We kind of know what happens next. She or he does not need to explain that as far as the narrator is concerned. So this piece is the one that struck me on many levels. And Rehab, I'd like to thank you for sharing this piece, ma'am. And when you gave us your backstory for why you chose this perspective, now a lot of it makes sense. And one of the things I told my undergraduate students is this when it comes to writing. You should find the emotional truth in the stories that you write. You wrote this story in a way that is powerful because you found the emotional truth in it. You drew on your personal experience to actually give this story life. You channeled that emotion that you felt in those moments when you had to do something similar, and it made for a great piece of dramatic work. So I applaud you. I see people putting up the hand clapping emojis. I will physically do the clapping. I'll do that. I'm not going to do the emoji thing because I'm an old man. Thank you, ma'am. So I know that we're kind of winding down now. I want to first say that I thank everyone for showing up today, especially on a Saturday. I cannot imagine doing this as a teenager on a Saturday. I don't think I would have done that in high school. My Saturdays were all about me and my friends. So I really thank you for your personal sacrifice and showing up for what feels like almost a class on a Saturday. So that's pretty cool. But before we end today, I would love to get some questions and maybe I can provide some answers, some feedback, whatever you'd like to share or whatever you'd like to know more about. I'll just leave it up to you. It's kind of open-ended.
For anyone who wants to, please type your questions in the chat as well. You can ask about having a writing career, picking writing as a major in college, because a lot of you are at the cusp of picking colleges, graduating high school. And if you'd like to ask Ian about his specific experiences in the world of writing and teaching, maybe you could do that. Talk about publishing if you'd like to do that. Yeah, looking forward to your questions. I have a question though, Professor, because I'm a big writing nerd. So there you go. By the way, I was the most annoying kid in my literature class because I was like, oh, me. So
it's fine.
Yeah, okay. So when you're talking about like writing from an emotional truth, how can you ensure, as someone who hasn't been in the position the character is in, that you're being as honest as possible? Because there's just so many experiences, affected by so many different factors. It becomes almost impossible to be able to kind of empathize from every single viewpoint.
Well, the fact is, we can actually imbue our work with emotional truths. You don't necessarily have to have been someone who's had to deliver tragic news to someone. As you remember, some of the people who shared their stories, they talk about personal loss. We all know what it is to have grief. So we can feel grief. We know what grief is. And if you think about a perspective about grief, you can put that into work about delivering bad news, tragic news to someone. You can imagine that person's grief. And if you can imagine that person's grief, you can imagine how emotionally, how draining it could be to be the person to deliver that bad news. Other emotions, everything from happiness to sadness, feelings of love, feelings of rejection. We know the wide range of human emotion. Whether or not that story is true in the sense that we lived it, we know the emotional truth of most scenarios, most situations. So that's not a problem. Let's see here. I see a question that someone sent me directly. Experiences in the professions of writing. Well, I hate to break it to you. Most of the time you're going to get rejected. Sometimes I get so many rejections, like I forgot like that I actually submitted somewhere. As far as the works that I've had published, they're mostly short stories. I've been working on a novel for way too long. I think I've been working on a novel for about 7 years, which is just ridiculous. It's part of the reason why I'm going to leave my current position so that I can focus on writing more like full time. I would say that the best way to get established as a writer, especially if you're writing fiction or poetry, you want to go online and you want to find places that have a small literary journal. That can be a college or university. That would be the best way to get started. And there is a website that I typically go to, and let me see here. Okay, I'll write it in the chat field for everyone. And the website is called submishmash.com. And it automatically leads to the new website called Submittable. But the reason why I use this website is because it's an aggregator. It will find all of the journals for you. So you can kind of play with it, and then you could do multiple submissions a day. When I'm trying to get a story published, I'll submit sometimes to 20 journals a day. It gets to be long and tedious. You have to write cover letters for all these different journals. But yeah, that would be one way. Can we know what novel you're working on and what inspired you? Oh, wow, that's a deep one. Putting it more broadly, the novel's about fathers and children, putting it broadly. What inspired it? I was in graduate school and I was putting together a collection of short stories, and I started writing this story that just got to be too big. I knew that I finally had something that was going to become a novel. And I was kind of scared because I was so used to writing short stories. And sometimes you write a story and it becomes too big. So I guess that's how I got there. Let's see here. Let's see here. Oh, wonderful. Yes. There's a plug for Youth Digest. Yes, I would say that too. Let's see, what else? Anyone else? Okay. What platform would you choose to publish stories? Okay, I think I already answered that one. All right, any other questions?
Feel free to raise your hand, unmute, and ask. Don't have to type it out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, while you're thinking, I'll just mention a few things. At the university level, and some of you are going to hate this, you sometimes take courses you absolutely don't want to take. Because at the university level, you have these general education requirements. So for instance, as an undergraduate, I was a sociology major, but I had to take statistics to get my degree. I was like, what does that have to do with sociology? But anyway, sometimes you'll take a course and you'll find yourself really enjoying that course. That's part of the reason why I changed my major as an undergraduate like 3 or 4 times. I can't remember how many times I changed my major. But yeah, the great thing about a liberal arts education is it exposes you to a number of different disciplines that you might not otherwise have exposed yourself to. So most of my students, since I teach at a university that's a technical university, it's basically about technology. Most of my students are actually engineers. They're all engineers. So they're all these high-level math whizzes, and they always make me feel stupid because they know math and I don't. But yeah, but I've been fortunate enough to have students who have gained a greater appreciation for literature and writing. Some students who weren't big readers, now they love to read, and that makes me feel so good, knowing that there are students who read novels. I've had students who've graduated and they still ask me about reading lists. I'm like, yeah, why don't you just go to a bookstore? But yeah, I'll give you a few books. But anyway, so the point I was trying to make is, as an undergraduate, you sometimes take some courses and all of a sudden you have enough credits to declare a minor. So for instance, I was just intellectually curious as a young person. So I took courses that seemed interesting to me. And I was fortunate enough to have taken some courses that were related to history and women's studies. So I was able to declare a minor in women's studies, which is just odd, right? A man with a minor in women's studies, but that's my background.
Progressive.
So I have some students who are engineers or business majors or something along those lines, computer science, and they have declared minors in literature or creative writing. So these are some of the options that are available to you. And if you think about setting yourself apart from some of your peers when you get out there in the real world and you're looking for jobs, you never know when someone may look at your CV, your resume, and they'll see that you graduated with a certain degree, but you have a minor that seems unrelated. So if you're an engineer and you have a minor in creative writing, someone might say like, oh, you know what? I love to write. I've always wanted to write a novel. That's what a lot of people say to me. And some people try to get me to read their novels, which is a whole different story. But yeah, that happens. So you just never know. These are like some of the things that you might not think about.
I have an interesting little tidbit here, like a story. When I was an intern at Cummins, which is a multinational, and they manufacture generator sets and so on. So the MD for the headquarters in Dubai was a major in literature. And I thought that was very surprising because this is supposed to be where like engineers dominate. But it turns out because he was a literature major, he had a certain way of thinking, a certain way of like, conducting himself and managing other people that made him so effective at his job. I guess it was like just, you just learn so much from fiction, experiences that you probably won't have yourself. And this perspective to all these multiple perspectives, like the writing assignment was focused on seeing one situation from in 3 different ways, and someone who has spent 4 years in college learning to do that definitely brings a lot of different skills to such a high management position.
So what I did was I entered an acronym in the chat field, Majah, related to what you're talking about. Rather than having STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, they've added the A for STEAM, and that means arts. They realize the appreciation of people who think differently. So adding that artistic perspective to what would be predominantly math and science courses, it adds for a richer university experience. And more importantly, it gets people to think more innovatively and creatively, because they're exposed to something that they normally wouldn't think about. If you think about some of the most brilliant people who've ever lived, I'll just mention Einstein. Einstein was very big into reading and literature, the world of imagination. If you think about a lot of the scientific and technological advances we've had, many science fiction writers predicted it. Many engineers, Elon Musk in particular, they're geeks. He was a sci-fi geek too. So that just makes sense. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because those are the kinds of stories that I like to hear. I find those very heartening. So other questions? I think you folks are probably a little bit tired. Okay, let me see. Can you recommend us any good novels for beginners to start their own novel? Oh boy, beginning novels.
I'm writing this list down, Ian, so excited.
You know what? There are certain YA novels, the young adult novels, that I think about even now. And one I think about is written by S.E. Hinton, The Outsiders. I remember being in middle school and I thought that was amazing. And even in high school, I kept watching the movie. I love that book. And there are other books, but if you're thinking in terms of some of the novels you can expect to read as a university student, a lot of my students like dystopian novels, which I love. And if you haven't read it before, I would say George Orwell's 1984. That's a good one.
The trauma that follows afterwards, please. My God, I read.
I know it's kind of depressing, but you know what? Since like my students always think I'm always depressing, I'm going to look at my bookshelf back here and I'll try to find a fun, light one. Okay, happy one. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Happy one. Oh, you know what?
I used to read.
I'll help you guys out. So this is Alice Monroe. She is a Pulitzer Prize winning author, And I will just mention this one collection, and it's called Runaway by Alice Monroe. And I can tell you something. Alice Monroe writes these beautiful stories about love and small town folks, and she has made a career out of it. Such a career that she got a Nobel Prize. So that's the light stuff. Good family drama and love. Alice Monroe. The students are always complaining I have depressing stuff. So there's that. I hope that helps. This is just a little partial reading list. But I will start with The Outsiders because it's accessible and people tend to forget how dramatic a teenager's life can be. So read that book. It's a great one.
Ian, I wanted to suggest a book myself, but I think this might be a difficult thing to read. So maybe I'll just share the experience. So I read God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy.
Sure.
And it's not an easy read. It's not a beach read, and it's quite controversial. But what I liked about it was that it was written from the perspective of a child. So the book was like, so the phrases were like partially written, sometimes like mid-sentence or mid-thought, the writing would completely change. And at first I couldn't understand, like, why is this so rushed and so partially written and so on? And then I realized it's because it's written from a child's mind, which is full of wonder. Kids are easily distracted. And the way the author wrote it was exactly representative of that. And I absolutely loved it. So if anyone wants to check out that book, after
I can co-sign.
Yeah.
I did not finish. I know, shame on me, but my wife loves that book. She says it's the best novel ever. And look, I like what Arundhati Roy does with that novel. It's experimental. The narrative is non-linear. She does certain things with the language, and what she does with it, it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to finish the novel, but I think it would be easier if I teach it. So I'm going to put it on my reading list. But yes, I am familiar. I think I was like,
it is. I haven't finished the novel either, just a little bit.
So we both didn't finish it, but we're recommending it. I did read like 80%. I just want to say I read like 80%. It was just like I got busy with work. So I have an excuse. All right, so if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those. If not, I want to thank you for your time. I know some of you are probably getting tired and antsy, and that's perfectly understandable as well.
Well, we can take another minute.
Well, the one thing I want to say, this will be part of my parting remarks.
We're going to take another minute to see if anyone has any questions. But if we're about to close, just really want to thank you, Ian, for taking out time for this.
And one more thing, just one thing quickly. You can write even if it's for yourself. Writing is a beautiful thing because it brings out these emotions in you that you don't even know are there. I tell people all the time, I don't know what I think about things in the world until I write about them. So please just understand that you don't have to be a novelist or a short story writer to enjoy the writing. You could do it for yourself. Writing is good therapy. So I want you to continue to do so, even if it's for yourself, especially you, Rehab. I see you over there. I see you. You got some talent, kid.
I will work on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so before we close again, if you have any testimonials for this workshop, please do email them to us, pyfdubai@gmail.com. And we'll be sending out a feedback survey as well. And Ian, we hope you come back for another workshop with us and our students.
Thank you.
So also in your testimonials, please let us know how much you enjoyed having this workshop being led by Ian. Just talk about particular things that you really liked about it. And yeah, we're really looking forward to them. And Ian, we're going to share them on our social media. So there's going to be a lot of advertising for your scouts.
I'm an old man. I don't really do social media.
We'll have a lot of Pakistani students buying your novel when it comes out, basically.
Exactly.
That'd be nice.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Have a
Bye,
great
everyone.
evening.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.